Welcome, everybody. This is Ever So Clever Conversations, and I'm Amy.
And I'm Heather. Welcome.
And this
Ever So
is
Clever Conversations with Amy and Heather.
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 And this is episode, I believe, 29.
We are 29. Yes.
We are 29. We are. Okay,
Yes. If you
maybe
could
not.
believe that would be.
That would be cute. And today we're really speaking about to protect and serve. It's just kind of a funny play on words, and maybe that's not so funny for being Minnesotans right now, but that we're talking about parenting and the empathic person and how does that protect and serve factor into who they are. And Heather and I started these conversations. I'm just going to take it over.
Yeah, please do.
To really help empathic and highly sensitive and possibly intuitive people have a place to go. And we aren't experts at this, but we definitely have a lot of experience. We kind of say we're the experienced empaths, to have you see how other empathic, highly sensitives have worked through some of these things to find a way to the other side. Because I think sometimes we can be hard on ourselves, or it can feel like a burden to have that natural way that you are in those attributes. So here we are bringing you through the turbulent times that we're in and helping make sense of those things. So Heather, what are you going to say about this?
Right. Well, before we even started, I said I did protect and probably overprotect my daughter. And I realized that later on in our journey, and she's 21. So about her teenage years, I started to realize that. But there's a point where you do need to do protection. There's protect them from harm, right? But then there's some of us that can go to the extreme of overprotection, and then they don't build that resilience or that um, even trust, I believe, in themselves or in you as a parent, because you're not providing that space for trust to build. So I can see that with her as a young child. Like I was more like if she falls and it gets hurt, I was like, that's okay. But it was more the emotional hurt that I tried to avoid her feeling. The physical hurt, like, stumbling and that, I'd be like, oh, you're good, get up. But yeah, like I said, if it was something emotionally, that was like so painful for me to watch, or I think I would feel it so much too for her. So that was where I would step in and over probably protect with my child. I know that Amy did it a little bit differently. So,
Yeah, I did. Another thing is if you are watching us live on Facebook or even later, write comments. We do visit the page of Empath Mama to check those out. So look at that, take a look at that and we'll keep peeking there. Yeah, I did do it a little bit differently. I think that I was more in alignment with, it is important. Like I was not a child who was protected by one of my parents who should have protected me, but couldn't for whatever reason. So that's what it was. But I do think that there's that difference. And I think, recently it came to my attention, I can't remember who the original creator of this concept was, but there's something in psychology called dirty pain and clean pain. And I think Heather is really referring to clean pain. When a child falls and hurts themselves, it's very apparent. Like if the child is like, I'm not sure if it hurts or not, if the parent's expression to them is, it's going to be okay, the child will rally and tend to be fine. And in no way am I saying to tell the child you're okay. I actually am not an advocate of that. It's more looking to the child's cues or asking the child, are you okay? In a very matter of fact way so that they can deduce from themselves and start to tune into their world of what their needs are within that, because we feel pain differently and so on. It's not that we're trying to be sensitive to that. It's more we're trying to help the child develop awareness of what do they feel from that and what do we have to, as parents, help them get around or understand. Anyway, so there's that, but there's also this dirty pain, which is things like in middle school when the girls are being mean to your daughter for no reason, or your child at fourth grade wasn't invited to the birthday party they've been invited to year after year, but everybody else was. And those can be ways that are tricky for us. And I think I know a little bit about Heather and how she's grown up, and I know how I was raised. And even Friday, I had a conversation with somebody about all these different attributes of our society. And in each turn with her, I would say, isn't it funny? I keep going back to protecting because as a child, I wasn't protected. And so it's in a way, a weakness where I'm like, how do we protect them? And that might not always be the best thing to do. So in the case of not being invited to the birthday party, we might allow that kid that experience of what do you feel about that? And what are you going to do with that? Well, maybe
Mhm.
I'll talk to the kid. I don't know why this is happening. And it might not, you might as a parent say, yeah, when I do that, I go in with no expectation of being invited to the party or not, but more with a desire to learn what's going on. So if I've made an error, I can change that or talk to that person about that and clear the air. So I think with the protecting, in a way, we want to meet things like that with vulnerability because it moves us past the fear and into this expressive place of now I know, oh, she was really resistant to talking to me at all. Well, then it's that girl's problem. And you can clarify that with your kid. And then they know some people are just going to behave like that through insecurity, and that's not about them. And that would be where the pain becomes clear for them. And we're not protecting them, but we're walking alongside of them.
Mhm.
But there are definitely places where things happen for kids that we need to step in and say, do you want me to talk to them? Or even with my kid, and I think Heather's oldest and my oldest are similar, they're both girls, where they don't like making phone calls, they don't like doing these things. And so setting up these places of how do you, because the fears are real. I mean, like, I know both of our kids really struggled to think about driving. It was like the idea of it was so big to them. And I know for my daughter, a lot of her fear was based in, I can actually kill somebody in this car. Like I could hurt somebody because of the snow or because of, and she's like, that's out of my control, mom. And I can't fathom that. So even though she did get her license a little bit later, but she did get it, she still, I'll say to her, okay, we're driving to the city and it's good to drive during the pandemic because there aren't many people on the road and you're going on a highway that's actually entertaining some busy, like some of the busiest areas in the city, but we're going to just skirt by that, so it's like getting her ready. But that's a process of a way to not to let her do it, but also let her know what to expect so that the highly sensitive kind of have the sense of, okay, they're not like, holy majoli, there's a lot of traffic all of a sudden. What do I do? And people are braking, I'd even say to my daughter, 10 cars ahead of her, somebody would push on their brakes pretty fast. And I'd say to her, just so you know, in traffic like this, there can be this whip that happens and it's like this, and oh, thanks for telling me, right? Because that highly sensitive wants to know. So, but we don't want to over instruct either, but there's this way to also protect them from becoming overwhelmed in a situation like riding or driving the car in a city, um,
Mhm.
where, then I had her drive back through the city by herself. She dropped me off out of state or outstate, and I thought this is a good challenge. She has to drive through some tricky areas of a busier city, and but then she gets to do it alone and practice that, and have the courage. So small steps with them, making phone calls where it's safe, because that's a big one for my kid, is like that is
Mhm.
really scary to them. And they'll fight it and start crying and breaking down as a 19-year-old, and it's like that might seem, well, what is the matter with you? But to protect them, it's about, you know what, if you're feeling anxious about it, I know that these people are safe and I know that they are kind and they want to help you and they're going to be matter of fact or they're going to be this way with you. And this is a calculated risk for you to take that um, leap to trying it out. And the time she's done it, she comes back and she's happy as a clam, or she realizes it's not so scary. And a piece to give to kids who are anxious once in a while, I wouldn't say this a lot, but when they're really struggling, is everything I've read, because our son had some anxiety issues, and I was like, well, I'm going to start just reading and finding out what are people doing about it today. And it said you really have to put them into the circumstances that create the challenges for them to see it's not so bad.
Yeah.
And as a parent, that's where we can protect them, is giving them circumstances that we know they're going to be friendly and safe and low risk, and then move them into higher risk, like you need to return this thing at a store. Well, that might be a little bit more, well, you can't return this anymore because it's past the 30 days, but they need to experience that too, and start to move into those higher, like, what do I do when there's conflict or discord? Um, etc. So
Mhm.
that's, I think, what I would say.
And to add to that, it's hard for me, and I've had to learn it, to not jump in and save. Like when I see Ellie be uncomfortable or I see her be anxious, even now, like if I say, it's just similar, like if she was crying about calling someone, I have to step away a little bit and be like, you got to let her do it, because it does affect me. I feel it too. So I can't step in because then that And I've learned that because I used to do that. I used to step in and be like, okay, I'll solve it for you. I'll figure it out for you. But that was not helping her. That was not teaching her anything. And now she's doing better. And we did something similar to Amy. She had an appointment for some skin issues she's having, and it's someone I know from years ago. So I knew it was a safe person. And so I went to the appointment with Ellie, but I sat there and I let Ellie answer the questions. I let Ellie ask the questions. And I didn't step in, and Ellie did an amazing job. And I even told her afterwards, and these seem like normal things someone should be able to do at 21, 20 years old, but this is really challenging for her. So I was told her too how proud I was, and she felt really confident in herself because she was able to do it. She made eye contact with the person, which is a big deal because if she's nervous, she'll look the other way and kind of hide her face. And she did it, and I was so proud of her. And so it's creating, like Amy said, those safe spaces, even for your kids when they're younger. Doing these techniques then will benefit them so much more when they're older, like our kids, when they're almost to adulthood. They'll just be so much stronger in who they are. And my son, who's 15, or he's 14, he's almost 15. Like I was going to get up from the dinner table last night and help him with his meal. Like, can I help you? Do you need help with that? And he's like, Mom, I totally got it. Like he will step in and tell me, like, I don't need you to help me.
Right.
Where Ellie would always accept it
Mhm.
and be like, yeah, please help. She'd never be like, no, I don't need your help. So she always allowed me to step in and help her, where he's like, Mom, I don't need your help, or like homework. I'll be like, oh, do you want me to help you with that? No, I'm good. So he's more about speaking up already and knowing what he needs. But they're two different personalities as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, Heather, when you say that, now with my kid standing at a counter and asking some questions or doing something, she might turn back like, I don't know what to do, and look at me.
Mm-hmm.
And I put my head down a little bit and I look at her and I just keep that eye contact
Mm-hmm.
because it gives her the pause to recognize I'm kind of showing her she has the power to do it. And that I say to her often, most people don't know what to say when they call places, like you just muddle through. But that's something. But on the other side of it, that kiddo flew when she was 16 by herself. And so I had to think about how do I prepare her for the airport? But she's a big reader and she's super observant, which of course, because she's a highly sensitive. And so the advantage was I used to get nervous in the airport, just like, am I going to be on time? Is it going to be?
Mm-hmm.
And she taught me how to not, because the airport is kind of like Granimals, right? It's like you look for this one thing where your gate is, you go in, you check through, and usually we pre-check our luggage or whatever, so we just drop it off and go. It's pretty easy. And then you make your way through. So in a way, what came out of it was you really don't have to talk to anybody or do anything. I mean, you can get a beverage if you want or something to eat, but that's up to you. So I think that turned around was like, oh, there's nothing to really get nervous about there because you're just kind of walking through and all the steps are there. So I think it helped me both ways with that one to see the reality of it. Yeah.
And I think the talking about to protect, some of it is advocacy for themselves as well,
Mhm.
learning to advocate, but then there are times that we need to advocate for them if it's something that's beyond their scope of handling. So for sure, there's still times they do need our protection, but knowing that balance between when it's a safe and they can handle it, and when we do need to step in, but
Mhm.
we're not overly stepping our bounds or boundaries on them.
Right, for sure. I mean, we had some kids in our house once that were kind of bullying my kids. There were just two of them over, and I kicked them out. And they're great kids, but I was like, "This is not okay. Please stop."
Yes.
And they
Yeah.
kept going on. And then I said, "This has got to stop now." And they kept going on. I'm like, "You're out." And they thought, what's the matter? We didn't do anything. And I'm like, "But you did." So there is that point where, and our kids were little, but still it's important to, and we can say to our older kids, do you want me to reach out when they're in high school to your teacher? Or do you want to work through
Mhm.
how you might reach out to your teacher?
Mhm.
Or do you just want to handle it on your own? And then they can see, and they might biff it and come back and say, I don't think, I didn't get a result I wanted, but those are great lessons. And
Mhm.
kudos to you, Heather, for your little guy, he's getting he's like, Mom, I don't have that level of need, and that's important too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Because I still feel it in me because I've been used to parenting that way, and he doesn't always need that. But then there was times he has like asked me to email a teacher about a certain situation, but normally he will take it on himself.
Right.
Um,
And I think
yeah,
that's good just for him to even know the difference, like, because there are things that they aren't ready to do. I mean, at all ages, we call home to, how do you make how do you
right,
cook this? Or, I mean, we
right.
need help, right? Yeah.
So much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Anything else we should add? Are there any questions? I see a couple viewers, but um, or similar circumstances people maybe have been going through. I
Yeah.
wanted to say something real quick about the driving. I was reading The Highly Sensitive Parent, I believe, by Dr. Elaine Aaron, and Amy and I had attended an event about a year ago in New York. But her son didn't learn to drive till he was 27, it said in there. And it was because there was a little bit of fear. And I think when you're a highly sensitive person, you are just aware it's maybe not even you. You have such an awareness of what could happen that other people can cause accidents, or that it's such an important thing to learn to drive, and can be dangerous. So I think that with my daughter too, she's like, I'm not afraid to drive, I'm afraid of the other people driving.
Mhm.
So it's like a huge concept, I think, for highly sensitive people to understand. And so there's a little story about that I think it's the highly sensitive child book. So he was 27, her son,
I
and they
agree.
let it be that
Yeah.
for when he was ready and he decided. So
With our kid too, I mean, that there was sort of this, we realized, just become hands off with it. Stop,
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
like, oh, do you want to go out driving? Just let them come to us.
yeah,
Because it can become too much. And they had talked about themselves, which I think is a strategy too, of moving to a city where they didn't need to have a car.
yeah,
They could just use transit. And then when they needed to go and visit somebody else, they'd rent a car or Uber, and that they would not have to drive very often. I
right,
think that's a great strategy because
yeah,
we are not a city where we live that's built that way, which stinks, you know.
right,
I think if it
right,
were that way, which, I mean, we could get into a whole conversation. It's like, it would be safer if everybody was on mass transit. It would be more efficient. I mean, it just all ways around, it would be better. But yeah.
but that's it too, not pushing like I was like 27, wow, but not pushing
Right.
that idea onto him and allowing him that space to finally come around, and he was ready. And then she was super anxious about driving with him because as a parent. um, so that was an interesting little story that she was telling. So yeah, I mean, we do our best, right, as parents, and that's we learn as we go. Like I've totally switched different things in my life, so wherever you are, it can always change,
Right.
and we're just here to share where our experiences are.
Well, and if we're going to finalize something here, I think that with the highly sensitive and empathic, the strength that they have is their knowing.
Hmm.
And so if we stand behind that, there's not much else to protect but their knowing, to let them have that. So it's like, because they will know, Mom, it's not for me to drive, or, and then you just follow that. And that's really hard for us because society's like, well, inconvenience. I mean, it's really nice having two drivers in the
Yeah,
kids, can you run to the store? So there's some things there, but society will dictate, grandparents will ask, well, why aren't you driving? And it's like, well, that is stuff we can stand behind and say, they'll drive when they're ready. I mean, I used to say that about my daughter. I'm sure I've said it here too, when she was compared to her cousin who was 6 weeks older, and with everything, and that kid did everything super early, like had all of their teeth by the, before our kid had any teeth, right? Did everything. And I just got into the habit of saying, when she's 18, she will have her teeth. When she's 18, she'll go to the bathroom on the toilet. When she's 18, she'll walk. She was a late walker, all the things. And I was like, oh, for shame. We
yeah,
broke her. But I thought, that's not true. It's just,
right,
she's on her own timeline. And
yeah,
that's, as
and
a
no
parent,
comparison.
yeah,
Oh,
it can be hard though
yeah, for
with our
sure.
society. Yeah,
So we have, that's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
sure.
Yeah, about our knowing. So Impact Mama has a workshop coming up with Amy tomorrow night, actually. So it is 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time, and it's about what, not parenting the way our parents did.
Yeah, it is really challenging the status quo. And, you know, these highly sensitives and empathic kids, we really can't parent them the same way our parents did. Um, Even with well-intentioned, it just doesn't work out very well for them. And what I say is what's good for the highly sensitive is good for every child, but what's good for every child is not good for the highly sensitive. And I think that's the difference. So it's a free class. Get your keister there.
Yeah. So that would be March 10th if you're watching this later. And there's a link, I believe, for that. And again, it's free. We'd love to have you. And then did you have something else, Amy?
I do. On Thursday, I'm teaching a class, so just join me for the whole week. Week evenings are booked. Then we'll have cocktail hour on Friday. Just kidding. But the Thursday at also, so it's Thursday, March 11th, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm hosting a class called Tools of the Heart, and it has nothing to do with love. It really has to do, well, I guess it could, but it has to do with everybody on earth is intuitive in two ways. So I say this is kind of the way I teach about the precursor, the beginning of intuition for all people. And I'm teaching you a technique that you can take with you. We actually try it in class. And in the past, when I've had classes, I've had people have immediate results that are pretty astounding. So we'll mess around with that. And it's more a workshop setting where I'll teach some, and then we'll hopefully have a breakout session or be able to take a minute and try it out and see, what arrives. But that is also moving into a class that I have called Everyday Intuition, which is a once-a-month class about a non-sequential opportunity to go deeper with your own intuition. But we're not pitching that right now, so no links for that. Just go look at Tools of the Heart. Sign up, join us for 2 days of fun.
All right. And then next week we have Anger is Not Always Bad, How It Has the Power to Be Transformative. So we'll see you next week.
See you guys. Thanks so much for joining us.
Bye.